It's night and a storm is raging outside my window as I lie on my bed staring at the ceiling. On InVision, a news thing says, "Public response to President Stickman's assurances is less than enthusiastic." In a news clip, people on the street are saying, "Spare me. Sure, whatever. Will you give me a break?" I switched the channel to a promo for the talk show guy, Dr. Bull. The laid-back commentator on the recliner is dressed, as always, in his signature Hawaiian shirt, white slacks and sandals. With his chin propped on the folded knuckles of his hands, the pundit says, Yeah, tough-talking President Stickman. A whole lot more of the same old, but let me tell you something. Until he can get his hands on some real evilists and actually do something about them, he's just blowing it out his pipe. And what's all this eternal optimism? Bull shakes his head and sneers. You know, there's a rumor going around that he wants to be president for eternity. Now that's a laugh. The Bull man leans forward and in a low voice confides, "And here's something else. You know, all those boogeymen he's talking about so much? Well, they're really not that hard to find. You just have to know where to look. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's time for my nap, because when I wake up, I got a lot to do." Immediately, I get a call from Vida. "Did you see the Bull guy?" "Not very good, Vinny. Not good at all. We're going to have to take action." I tell her, sure, but to be honest, all this is making me very tired. I gotta go to sleep. It seems like it's only been minutes and I'm awakened by a Dr. Bull update. A dozen men are shown threading their way through a subterranean forest of stalactites and stalagmites. All but one of them are dressed in commando uniforms, with ski masks covering their faces. Behind them, Dr. Bull in his Hawaiian attire is being led by a rope tied to his wrists. A black bag covers his head. The cave widens to a cavern. Media lights illuminate 2 chairs in front of a wall. A sign reads, "Paying for dollars." Dr. Bull is seated and a microphone is clipped to the bag at the level of his mouth. The man in the bag says, "It's mind-bending time again on the Dr. Bull Show. Listen, you can take my word for it. This is really me in here. All bull, pure bull, and that's no bull whatsoever. Because, believe me, this is as real as it gets. I'm reporting from in a cave hundreds of feet underground. Exactly how far down is a secret. And if I actually knew where I am right now, believe me, I wouldn't be alive to tell you about it." One of the ski-masked commandos takes the chair next to him as Dr. Bull continues. "This man needs no introduction. You've seen his mask thousands of times. The doyen of mayhem, Doom Man himself. His signature black ski mask has become the trademark for mayhem around the world." Dr. Bull turns to his captor. "Now, tell us, Doom Man, your manifesto, Paying for Dollars, has just been published. But before we get into that, tell me, is it true that you and your followers are responsible for all of the mayhem around the world?" "That's quite a compliment, Dr. Bull. I don't know about all of the mayhem, but we certainly contribute as much as we can." "And the reason for all this death and destruction?" "Our goal is to bring about a major redistribution of everything." "That's very ambitious. We believe that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. In your book, you say that arithmetic is pivotal to your approach to world transformation. Can you explain?" "Yes. Paying for dollars is simple addition and subtraction. There are two fundamentals in the lives of everyone, no matter how rich or how poor. These two basics are money and pain. On the one hand, money determines the quality of our lives. On the other, we dread pain and try to avoid it at all costs. The work we do is based on the axiom that dollars and pain are fully fungible currency. That is, they're interchangeable. We practice economics at the most fundamental level. You know how things are. It's the oldest story ever told. The rich get richer while the poor get more miserable. And the arithmetic? Asks Dr. Bull. Sure, it's simple. Pain for dollars is expressed by the equations pain equals money and money equals pain. Case in point, say some poor devil is starving and you give him $1 million. That alleviates his starving, right? The money takes away his pain. Flipping that around now, say I kidnap your baby and ask $1 million ransom not to cut off his head. You'll be highly motivated to pay that ransom. See? Pain equals money, and money equals pain. And through the magic of mayhem, we're making this conversion universal. Pain for dollars is accomplishing a redistribution of money and pain, like no revolution in the world has ever seen. The situations we enable through our projects are intuitively clear to rich and poor alike, i.e., to lessen the pain, just add money. If you're short on cash, invest in pain. That's really all there is to it. Dr. Bull says. But all the mayhem, Doom Man replies. I believe there's way too much emphasis on mayhem. Keep in mind now, mayhem is only the means to an end. But this mayhem causes untold misery. You're just cashing in on suffering. Cashing in makes it sound so crass. We prefer the term leveraging. Pain is a fantastic lever, but it's no more than a tool, a means to an end. Like other tools, pain comes in a variety of shapes and sizes. Consider for a moment the broad pain palette we use to create our end results. First of all, there's ambient pain, felt by every man, woman, and child living in the world where fear of mayhem is common. This is an unconscious, bone-chilling pain. Then, more poignant, there's familial pain. This is the fear that mayhem will be directed against a loved one, near and dear, especially a child, perhaps an only child. That kind of pain is a hard thing to live with. Add to that the gnawing pain of insecurity, the prospect of finding yourself living on the street with trash should you lose all of your material possessions due to the effects of mayhem. Now, on top of that, add pervasive fiscal pain, the pain of not knowing how all this worldwide destruction can ever be paid for. And finally, and I like this one the best, there's the pain of general despair as people realize that no one and no government can ever protect them from the mayhem. Dr. Bull says, it's simply extortion. Doom Man responds, yes, some people call us extortionists, racketeers, shakedown artists, and the like, but we find those undignified characterizations. We have elevated the value of pain far above those common crimes. We've advanced pain to a whole nother level. We are pain brokers, deal makers, negotiators. You're murderers, says the Bull Man. Perhaps. But our murders have socially redeeming value. We don't commit violence for violence sake alone. That would be gratuitous. You may think of us as mad bombers, but we're tied directly to the mainstream. We work hand in glove with people in all walks of life: entrepreneurs, bankers, insurance companies, multinationals, and governments. It's well understood that we fulfill the indispensable function of converting pain into dollars for one and all alike. Dirty work, you say? Perhaps so. But in this day and age, it's absolutely essential. Sure, it's a tough job. Somebody's got to do it. And the kidnapping? Asked Dr. Bull. Okay, let's talk about kidnapping. Kidnapping used to be just one of our sidelines, but today it's a major revenue generator, accreting directly to the bottom line. Actually, we're very bullish on kidnapping. Dr. Bull says, someday, when there's actually a government with the will to crack down on you, Doomman interrupts him. That's not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. We have connections at the highest levels. The people we deal with appreciate our sensitivity to the subtleties of public consciousness, and they know that no matter how bad the mayhem may seem, they can count on us to prevent things from getting totally out of hand. And they also know that if it were common knowledge just how much pain is being converted into how many billions every day, they know very well that there'd be all hell to pay. The movers and shakers know what a good deal they have. They trust us to walk a thin line, and we trust them to put up a good show, because, after all, it's all about trust. But the cost of the massive devastation. We have a cost schedule that covers everything we do. $1.2 billion for the protection of a corporate complex, $6 million to remove the threat to a family's vacation home, $2.8 million to mitigate torture. And if we see that the lump sum payment is going to be a deal breaker, we are flexible. We can afford to be. We carry our own credit. And what do you do with all the money you extort? Our enterprise is no different than any other. So, naturally, our stockholders profit from the earnings. And your stockholders are? Believe me, he laughs. You'd be very surprised if I told you. And the poor? Asks Dr. Bull. Look, we're just as concerned about the poor as anyone. I hope it's clear to you by now that we're not just in this for ourselves. So yes, the poor profit too. But indirectly, of course. After all, you can't just throw money at poor people. Why, if poor people knew what to do with money, they wouldn't be poor now, would they? And just how do the poor benefit from the mayhem? Well, you're familiar with the saying, help flows downhill? We enrich the poor through middlemen, non-governmental helping organizations, and that sort of thing. And the middlemen, are they accountable for their help to the poor? Doomman laughs. For what we're paying them, they better be accountable. After all, we don't just squander money on the poor. Every penny that's earmarked for the poor is scrupulously accounted for. We keep strict tabs because, after all, we have the future to worry about. And I can assure you that we're keeping an eye on the future because, just like everyone else, we hope to be around for a long, long time. Very businesslike, says Dr. Bull. So, you have a business model? Of course. We have a mission statement. Our motto is investment for growth, and we have milestones we review quarterly. We're putting paying dollars to work as investments. For example, right now, we're heavily into technology, commodities, retail, and services. We've recently become bullish on corn futures with an eye on energy. There's a lot of pain associated with diminishing energy and associated hunger. So, Naturally, we're very keen on exploiting these to their full potential. Dr. Bull says, back to the violence. Aren't you concerned about copycat mayhem? Can't anyone do what you're doing? The extortion, trafficking, and paying for dollars? Couldn't anyone claim to be you? Doom Man says, we're not monopolists. Our mission is growth of the whole mayhem industry. Paying for dollars is everyone's future. Dr. Bull says, extortion doesn't always work. Many victims and their families can't pay even if they want to. Buildings are bombed. Innocent people are murdered. In kidnappings, you use pictures of body parts, teeth, fingers, ears, hands. Severed heads are delivered to terror-stricken loved ones. Doom Man replies, let me make this perfectly clear. We're not out to hurt anyone specifically. But when encouragement is called for, at the end of the day, this is a zero-sum game. More pain for the gots means less pain for the gimmies. In the world of dog-eat-dog, there's no free lunch. Dr. Bull says, they say you're an extremist. Doom Man objects. No, I'm an idealist. I envision a world where all human beings have the right to suffer alike. Equality in suffering is what we're after. I mean, how much more equal can you get? And when you're caught? Doom Man scoffs. You mean down here? And he motions at the stalactites and stalagmites around him. As I'm listening to this, I can't get his comments about the government out of my mind. I patch into Vida in a side window and ask her, are you watching this? You bet we're watching. I tell her, this Doom Man, he is really dangerous. The President, surely the President is aware. Oh yes, Vinny, he is well aware. And what is he doing about it? What to do about it? Yes, that is the central question here. How can we make the best use of this for our purposes? A few minutes later, there's a Dr. Bull follow-up. A news thing tells us that News Now has just zeroed in on the Bull Man somewhere in central Chad. Dr. Bull, with the black bag still covering his head, sits on a rock at the opening to a cave. He removes the bag, blinking in the gray overcast light. The news thing says, Dr. Bull, that was some interview. But tell us, with people in ski masks taking credit for mayhem all over the world, how can you be sure that the Doom Man you just interviewed is really the authentic Doom Man? That could be anybody wearing a ski mask. Absolutely, says Dr. Bull, covering his head with the bag again. He asks, how do I look? The news thing tells him, well, with that bag on your head, you look like a prisoner. Yes. Now, just a slight modification. He removes the bag from his head, cuts 3 horizontal slots in one side of the bag, and puts it back on, aligning the newly cut holes with his eyes and mouth. What do I look like now? He asks. You look like a mayhem artist. The Bull Man says, simple as pie. The news thing says, Doom Man had quite a lot to say on the subject of change. In fact, his whole premise is about change. So, Dr. Bull, how do you feel about change? I don't feel anything about change. The news thing persists. I mean, speaking as a man who is wearing a mask, do you advocate change? The man in the newly formed mask says, change happens. Things are changing all around us. But no, I don't advocate change. I mean, what would be the point of that? Water flows downhill, and I don't advocate water flowing downhill. life evolves, but I don't advocate evolution. Shit happens. And I don't advocate shit. What's the point of advocating the obvious? The news thing asks, it must be getting hot with that bag over your head. When are you going to take it off? Dr. Bull answers, 3 small slits, and a bag becomes a mask. Really, what do we know about anyone beyond what we're shown? So, here I am. What you see is what you get. But there's one thing you can count on. I'm still pure bull, and that's no bull. And one more thing you can count on. I'll be flogging this story to the bitter end. Pointing to the eye holes in his hood, he says, this is as real as it gets.